Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Daily Sports Report podcast, your one-stop pod for all things UNT sports. It is your host, Ian Pfaffenberger. I am back today. It's been a couple weeks, but I'm back today with the managing editor, Justin Naw. He's finally joined us this semester. Say what's up, Justin.
What is up? Yeah, I haven't been on since the fall then, huh?
It's been a little bit, yeah.
Since football season.
Life's been hectic. It's been a couple weeks since we've put an episode out. We got Justin back on now. Got a lot to talk about. Obviously, a couple weeks of content means a lot of stuff to talk about. So we got a good episode here for you guys. First thing we're going to get into is what the heck's going on in basketball. Obviously, men's have struggled a little bit to start off. Women's have kind of been up and down. Men's basketball, 2-4 since January 21st. Both wins are over UTSA, who sit last in the conference. They've been really bad this year. So little couple things to be worried about for men's basketball there. Women's basketball just lost yesterday at the time of filming to Rice. Watched that game live. A tough one. Blew a 10-point lead there. We'll get into that first. Softball gotten off to a slow start. They kicked off their season this last weekend. Off to 1-4 after their first tournament. Of course, took on Texas Tech to start off the season, so not an easy task there. Then a couple of other losses that are, obviously a little rough, but beginning of the season. And then maybe some Twitter beef we'll get into in a little bit. And then finally, we don't do this often, but we're going to talk about track and field. I don't know if you guys have kept up with that, but they have been killing it to start the year. So it just needs to be highlighted. It needs to be discussed. Those are all the things we'll be going over. So starting off, let's start off with men's basketball. Sitting at, Justin, I don't know if you have it pulled up, but they're not sitting pretty.
No, they're not. They're 13-11 and 4-7 in conference play. They are on the American Conference website, tied with Rice, I think, for that 10th spot. 1, 2.
Yeah, they're tied for 10th currently. So as of right now, they will get in the conference championship, but if they keep dropping games that aren't against the last place team of the conference, then they won't be that way for long. So just kind of a general thought here, Justin. What do you think? Where do you think the problem is for men's basketball, and what has it been this season?
It's a great question, Ian. You know, it's really unfortunate. I think we were probably talked about it ages ago, probably when we talked about football, actually. When we were previewing all these upcoming spring sports, and Daniel Robinson's coming in, first-year coach. We were talking about Cody White, who's another first-year coach, and we'll talk about softball obviously later on. There's just a lot of change that you have to create pretty immediately, and you don't have much time to get settled in, especially in men's basketball. Obviously across all sports, but basketball in particular with the transfer portal action and having to essentially restart, besides having some key pieces from Cleveland State, even those pieces are obviously from a lower level. So anyways, whole point being that when you're a first-year head coach, you just have so many questions to answer and a puzzle to kind of put together on the fly. And the puzzle has not worked in several different capacities. What do I think the biggest problems that have plagued men's basketball this year?
Well, get into some hot takes immediately. Let's go.
Well, I mean, there's just a couple. So, I mean, obviously, they're a very defensive team, but compared
number one in the conference,
absolutely, and the way they play defense, I think, is a lot more akin to a more football analogy. Skylar Cassidy, the defensive coordinator for North Texas football, right? Mm-hmm. We're trying to create turnovers, create havoc. Ross Hodge was more about the not giving up the middle, right? So we're going to force everything baseline. We're going to force tough shots. Our guys are not going to be supremely athletic besides like Brendan Lorient last year, for instance. But they're not going to be supremely athletic, but they're going to be smart. They're going to be able to poke the ball out at times, but they're going to probably mitigate risk for the most part. This new Daniel Robinson style of defense, like when they're coming off a pick and roll, right? Or when the opposing team is coming off a pick and roll, the North Texas men's basketball team elects to oftentimes double or hedge, right? So where that big man is going to leave his man open, they're going to have someone else rotate, and they're going to leave a shooter open, essentially, just try to create a turnover. So we're kind of gambling a lot of times. And Coach Robinson has been very transparent about that, at least in the interviews that I've had with him, where he's like, listen, I mean, we're just not a team that has like several go-to bucket getters, go-to scorers where, we can just kind of run actions and get them into spots to get going. We kind of have to create points. And if he already kind of acknowledged that, I'm pretty sure earlier on, where he was talking about the biggest strength of this team not being in talent, but it being in depth. And so if your biggest talent is depth, and then you lose Will McClendon just a couple games into the year, who is going to play that spark off the bench and supply a lot of that scoring, possibly be one of your best scorers on this team, you have to really create points. So that's the first part of the puzzle that immediately like cracks off. Okay. Yeah. So let's plug that in with more havoc. Let's just create more turnovers. Let's just keep doing that, jazz. Okay. Let's say you're going to take more gambles. You're going to take more gambles. You're going to take more risks. You're going to be out of position on defense when you're doubling and hedging. And so what that leads to and what we've seen is a lot of fouls. We've seen Reese Robinson, I think, has picked it up more recently, but earlier in the season, he was fouling out, not once, but like twice or three times throughout the season. And it's not entirely his fault because the other guys have been picking up tons of fouls too. because we need to create points. We're dependent on this havoc turnover creating defense, and we don't have as much offensive production. Simultaneous to that, we lost Josiah Shackelford at some point as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, your core piece is depth. You lose another piece right there. And so when it comes to rebounding, that's probably I believe he's 6'9". I'm pretty sure because 6'9" is the tallest guy on the team.
Only other guy that is over 6'8" on this team.
I know, and so we're inherently already a smaller team. So you lost one of your big men and kind of putting Dylan Arnett on an island and asking Cole Franklin, who's a 6'4" guard, to pick up 10 rebounds a game. And it's like Cole's going to do his best, but just from like a matchup perspective, these teams are going to be a little taller than that. And you can't expect Cole to out hustle the opposing team for 10 rebounds and like 7 offensive rebounds. I remember that sound line vividly from one of the past games I went to. And so Coach Robinson's had a really unfortunate situation in this first year. He was already going to have to answer a lot of questions, but then he lost several of those answers kind of throughout the season. We picked up the guy from Europe, obviously, who's a big man.
Ousmane Undour.
And so that would be wonderful to have, especially if Josiah Shackelford's not back. Coach Robinson has been very fair, and he's been like, Buddy Hammer's been doing well with his minutes, but Buddy Hammer's like 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah.
So maybe 6'7", actually. But it's just like, the whole strength of this unit was going to be depth, and then you lost all the depth.
Yeah,
so what do you
immediately?
What you're left with is depth that you're asking to step up at a much higher level. And so thank goodness that Jashawn Stevenson is able to produce 17, 18 points per game and have these crazy career highs. If you didn't have that, I don't know where you would find this offense.
Yeah, it's a good point bringing up Jashawn Stevenson there. Obviously, all the stuff you listed, obviously not fun, but there is some positives for this team. Jashawn Stevenson has made it clear he loves Coach D-Rob. He's only a sophomore, very young. So if he chooses to transfer, obviously that would hurt, but he loves playing with D-Rob. So if he wants to stay here, wants to commit to the system, then you have him for a couple other years. Dylan Arnett's been killing it. He's only a junior. Or not Dylan Arnett, David Terrell, has been killing it. He's only a junior at the point guard. So you have a good young core there in the backcourt. Just kind of, like you said, getting the depth for that front court and the size, frankly. Like if you have... all props to Dylan Arnett, but if you have a 6'9" guy and you have to rely on him to outmuscle some of these other guys, it's just not going to work out for you very well.
Yeah, I mean, like Reese is 6'8", but like you can see him on the court. He's not built like a
big man. He's not a Mulaya Sissoko. No. Like
he doesn't have that muscle mass. He's a wing, and that's fine. I'm loving it, and we're putting him in that dunker spot because we need people to play down low, and he's doing. Everyone is doing what they can with what they got. Especially Coach Robinson. And I think that there's a general slight overreaction in terms of like, oh, we're losing too many games. They're losing a lot of games by margins under 10, under 5.
Lost to Rice by 3, lost to UAB by 5, Tulsa by, well, they got blown out by Tulsa recently. But yeah.
They pulled off that win against Tulsa.
They won against them the first time.
We were talking about a South Florida loss at here. That was like about 4 points. They beat Tulane at Tulane. They lost to East Carolina, which albeit they shouldn't have lost East Carolina, but by 4. So there's just everyone is doing again what they can with what they have, including Coach Robinson. I think he's about damn near maximizing what this roster is currently capable of with all the obstacles he has. Like I don't know what people want in terms of a better coaching job. Maybe like. You can point out that like the fouls in the late game situations are probably not the smartest decision, but like that's the way you play. So like if your identity is going to be turnover creating defense, then when you go into late game situations, you're not going to turn that off. Like you're not going to deviate from that. So you gambled what you got, and I think he's maximizing what he has essentially right now.
Yeah. So kind of going off of that, and just to kind of throw this in before I ask this next question, obviously there's been some discourse on Twitter for already calling for Robinson's head and his job, and I think that's just a little bit ridiculous. He has a rapport over at Cleveland State, obviously 3 20-plus win seasons, brought over all these other players who clearly believe in his system, and I think Justin did a good job just pointing it out. He's just doing what he can with what he has. So if I am a Mean Green basketball fan, what should I just be patient about? Maybe this season isn't it. It's obviously not the success we've had under Ross Hodge or Grant McCaslin, but what should you be patient with in this Daniel Robinson era?
Well, you should be patient for conference play. So obviously, if we make the conference championship, it's probably going to be as a lower seed. And in terms of like the chances to upset or, have this pretty impressive win over whoever they play, it's going to be a higher seed. I'm not necessarily the most confident in that. But, you can never count anyone out, and the way this North Texas team plays in terms of its defense being, its forefront best skill. I always compared, Coach Ross Hodge, back when we were covering him. When you kind of force teams into slower possessions and closer games, you do always have a chance. And so I think, like, if Coach Robinson can keep creating turnovers and keep getting out to these larger margins, maybe. I'm honestly kind of pitching it to myself right now. I'm
You're
like
convincing yourself.
yeah, I'm like, I guess if like you have a really good game where you can create enough turnovers and then really slow the game down, and you can probably escape with a win. Is my pitch.
Going just, I guess, kind of more from a future focused lens. Even if this season doesn't work out, if you're able to keep Deshaun Stevenson and David Terrell, bam, you have a backcourt there.
Yeah.
Obviously, Reese Robinson, you're going to be looking for his development. Buddy Hammer, obviously, has been getting those minutes. Cole Franklin's a senior, if I'm not mistaken.
I think a junior. But
well, that would be great if you keep him too.
But yes, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, he's a junior. Yeah,
so for near future, I would tell fans, listen, wait till conference play. We'll see how it kind of, or wait till conference play to conclude, and we'll get into the conference championship and the tournament, if we do. Now, there's also a chance that we just don't make it. But I'm not entirely confident in their odds of playing a higher seed. But maybe people will start healing up. Josiah, whoever it is, and then you can have a more put together performance, and maybe we can pull something off there. But I'd really tell fans you're right. I tell them to be a lot more optimistic about next season. I think it's been kind of underreported. And shout out me for being Mean Green 24/7, so it's probably my fault, honestly. But it's been kind of underreported. I know the what do you call it? On the media relations side of things, they released a press release about it. But Coach Rob picked up a 4-star high school prospect.
Yeah, I was about to mention that next.
They picked up a couple guys who I'm super excited about.
The second highest in program history or something like that.
And so if you what's super interesting, in terms of the future, already there's some impressive young talent that's slated to join the Mean Green next season. So that I should be pretty excited about that. What I'm also excited about is I'm really curious about this coaching staff's ability to recruit from a lot of different places. The advantage of having, I think, a veteran coach like Daniel Robinson is that he's been at so many different stops, whether it be Iowa State, whether it be Chicago, back at Loyola, and obviously Cleveland State. So we're up north. We're obviously in Iowa State as well. We're kind of in that Midwest region, but we also have, obviously you're in Denton, Texas, so you have access to DFW as well. I'm really curious about how that pipeline is going to affect the way this team comes together next season as well. So I'm kind of, I would tell fans to be optimistic. There's going to be a lot of change next season as well, because obviously there's Dylan Arnett's a senior. And then you also have, who else is a senior on this team, actually?
Only a couple. You have
Demarion Watson's a senior. Will McClendon and Josiah are both seniors. I don't know if Will can get a redshirt year or anything, but
I think he's already had one. I think he's a 5th year.
Well, then it's terribly unfortunate. But you'll lose a couple pieces. You'll retain the ones that want to stay or the ones that fit the vision. And from there, I'm super excited to see how that young talent can imbue some more energy into this team, and then how those other recruiting pipelines can bring some different looking talent to North Texas. I think North Texas was very familiar with Coach Hodge's repertoire of using community college, JUCO guys who were around the area, or at least in the South, and kind of bringing them here and giving them chances. There were a couple. He went out of state several times as well, but I think that was kind of the main pool that he was pulling from. I'm really curious about this coaching staff and where exactly they're going to grab their talent next season. So look out for that, fans. That's what I tell them.
Interesting stuff to watch. I guess going into women's basketball now, they've been a little bit better to watch than men's basketball, but obviously not up to the standard that you've seen Coach Burton coach this team. They just lost to Rice yesterday, as kind of mentioned at the beginning. Blew a 10-point lead. It was unfortunate. Rice has been killing it this year, still undefeated in conference, but that's twice now that this women's basketball team has almost beaten them. Let me pull up North Texas' official record here. They're 5th in the American, 13-11, 7-5. Obviously, okay around there, but not what you want to see. And honestly, I don't think what is reflective of this team and how good they actually are. I mean, you have arguable Conference Player of the Year, Megan Nestor. You have a ton of offensive contributors. You have Burton himself, who can coach teams to massive win totals. So, Justin, just to ask you, what do you think just needs to click for this team? Obviously, you have a few games left, but you're still dropping these close games. Like, you have a chance to beat conference leaders Rice. They blew that game to Tulsa recently, but they have good wins. They almost lost to Temple, came back against that. They have the talent, and you see it. Megan Nestor is a beast on the boards. Asia Proctor can score. 20 plus in a game if she wants to. You have great depth. You have a good spark plug in Micaiah Chase. What do you think needs to happen? What do you think is missing for this team to take it to that next level? They're safe, I think. I think they're going to get to that. I mean, not think. They will get to that conference tournament if they're, at the 5th seed right now, unless they have an absolute collapse. But just to take it to that next level, be able to compete and win those games against teams like Rice, like East Carolina. What do you think needs to happen?
I think that this team needs to capitalize on the 3-point opportunities that they have, and I'm unsure if the personnel they have currently allows them to do that. I think that there are capable shooters on this team, Asia Proctor being one of them, Andy Schisler being one of them, but I think that they're not the most consistent. Asia's obviously in a really interesting situation where, sometimes they really need to rely on her scoring, and that doesn't include just perimeter shooting. Obviously, she's a great 3-point shooter too, but they might not use her as a spot-up shooter or a catch-and-shoot shooter as often as she probably could excel in. So if you're not going to rely on her, then you have to turn to other people to kind of, if she's going to be on ball essentially. And off ball, you can have Andy, you can have a couple of these other people who have had fluctuating minutes, Andy Schisler in particular, obviously. And I'm unsure if there's any stability in terms of perimeter shooting. And so what I'm worried about really, or what I think was plagued them previously, is that when you confront these other teams that do have, a plethora of 3-point shooting, like some of these teams do in the American Conference. I remember it vividly against Tulsa, where the reason they were able to come back, and it was right before the Winter Storm, was because they went on this barrage of 3-point attempts, and North Texas at the time, the people who were going were Megan Nestor and Asia Proctor, and so we weren't able to convert on the wide open 3-point attempts that you had. And then you were kind of just forcing the ball down low or asking Asia Proctor to create shots for you, which she can. And Megan Esper can also excel down low. But this team, Byrne was talking about at the beginning of the year, was supposed to have the most offensive versatility in terms of being able to play down low and on the three. From the years that we've covered this team, Tamisha Lampkin was obviously a beast down low, but in terms of its identity offensively, that was the identity. A premium gas only, right? We're going to be out in fast breaks, right? That's our motto. So we're going to be out in fast breaks. We're going to be running. We're going to try to get to the rim in transition. But this team was supposed to be the one that had that flexibility to be heavy on the 3-point shooting side. But I'll ask you, Ian, if you look at this roster right fast, right? Who do you really expect to offer that from the perimeter consistently?
Obviously, I think it should have been Andy Schisler to the start, and I think she started off the season really well. Was in the starting lineup for most of the season until team kind of hit that skid. They had a 3-game losing streak, I think it was, and Burton kind of outdid the roster. You obviously had Tiffany Hammond, who hasn't had played games in a while. Kind of went down in her minutes as well. Asia Proctor obviously has been shooting well, but hers has kind of faltered. I think just kind of all around. I think you don't want to rely too much on Asia Proctor. Looking at the stats here, though, just overall team 3-point shooting, North Texas sits at 7th out of 13th, which right in the middle of the pack, conference wise. So I think just 3-point shooting wise, I guess right now it just kind of depends who has the hot hand, right? It was Asia for a little bit. She was shooting around 50% when she kind of got into the starting lineup in conference for a little bit. Just kind of ebbs and flows, right? Andy Schisler's kind of been on and off. Micaiah Chase is really a mid-range scorer. She'll get the ball and kind of drive inside. And then other than that, you don't really have many is kind of the thing. So, yeah, I guess that's kind of my take on it.
No, and I think that's a very accurate point. They're not a terrible 3-point shooting team, and I don't think they were ever terrible, really. But they weren't a great 3-point shooting team previously, previous years under Bird. Yeah. This year, they're just okay, but I don't think they're as good of a down low team or scoring in the paint, right?
This year?
Yeah, I mean, they are. I think that's still their identity, and I still think that's what they do. But I was talking about you on the way to lunch. I was like, Megan Nestor is a beast on the boards, and I think in terms of rebounding, we'll have the season totals at the end, and she'll probably have one of the best seasons in North Texas history. Yeah,
she's about to break that single season record.
Absolutely,
in a couple games.
But Tamisha Lankin was no joke on the boards either. But I think the advantage with Tamisha was that she was so much more driven to running out in transition, and she was able to get so many of those buckets. I think she was a better scorer down low. I don't think Megan Nestor is as proficient of a scorer in the post, and so therefore your identity is still kind of paint driven, but I don't think you're as good of a paint driven team, and you're not as bad of a 3-point shooting team as you have been previously. But I don't think you're a good 3-point shooting team.
Yeah. So it was kind of like this, and now it's like that.
Exactly.
What you're saying. Yeah.
Which is helpful in certain situations where if let's say that one's not working, you can always turn to the other. But I don't think they can turn to either very consistently as like just kind of their one answer to a lot of these questions.
Mhm.
Simultaneous to that, we were watching clips of or the final moments of that Rice game, and there's always, I don't know why, but following a miss, right? They'll get back in transition, and there'll just be an open 3-point shooter from the opposing team,
Yeah.
and I don't know why. Like, maybe it's just a miscommunication, misunderstanding. Maybe it's fatigue. But it's crazy to say fatigue for a team that's all premium gas only, right? Or for a team that's known for their conditioning, and that's what has been preached in this program. So I think those are fair critiques of this women's basketball team. The result, though, I'm still more glass half full with this team. I think that obviously they have actually a similar overall record to the men's team in
Yeah,
terms of like
it's similar on paper, but I think just if you just buy the eye test and if you watch the game, there's more to be excited about this team.
yes,
Like with the complaints we were having about the men's team is obviously lack of depth. You don't really have any true scorers, ball handlers besides I guess Deshaun Stevenson, and no one inside. And that's kind of not the case for this team. It's really kind of the opposite. You have a lot of people who can score the ball. Obviously, Asia Proctor, you can get it down low to Megan Esther just from her sheer size, which obviously she's only been playing basketball for a couple years,
exactly.
but just
Yeah.
because she's 6'4", you can get it down there and she can get her points. I mean, she dropped 34 points and 20 plus points multiple times this season, and then just a couple other people that you can get the ball to.
Yeah.
And then they have that inside presence with not only Megan Nestor, but Tiana Lidge, who's also 6'4", I think. So they have.
I want to see her get going a little more too.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know what the situation is. Sometimes with Tiana, I see her, I think, settle for like a fadeaway jump shot or like a jump shot period, honestly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but like you're the big. I think you have a size advantage in some of these situations. Just go down there and get the bucket, right? Like I even if you don't get the bucket, you can at least foul and go to the free throw line. But yeah, I mean that's so. Anyways, the conclusion of this, I do want to see someone kind of emerge as like that third option. If it's like if it's not Proctor's night, it's not Nestor's night, then I want a third option. I don't think there will be. Shania Price picked up some speed, right? But
Yeah.
she's also ebbed and flowed in terms of her production offensively. I love the way they use her, right? Where they use her both as like a roll man, right, or sending the pick, or she's on ball and she's the ball handler in the pick and roll, which I love.
I think last night they were playing Andy Schisler, not Andy Schisler, excuse me. Where's her name? I forgot. Sheree Spencer.
Cherry
Yeah,
Spence.
she was ball handling a little bit. They were kind of talking about it on the broadcast there, and that was kind of another point I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
Is I don't know if this team really has a true one. Obviously, you have a lot of people who kind of have their skill set offensively, and Proctor I think is the most well rounded kind of out of that. But Micaiah Chase, obviously, she's the spark plug off the bench. She doesn't really start, but she gets the most minutes off the bench. She'll come in and she'll get the ball. After the other team scores and drive it down all
Yeah.
by herself and get a contact layup. That's pretty much what she does. She's not a true kind of dish the ball out, play caller kind of guy or girl, I guess I should say. Asia Proctor, obviously more of the shooting guard, scoring kind of type. So I just don't think you really have a true ball handler who can direct the offense. So the talent is there. I just don't know if it's being directed kind of how you want on the court.
Yeah, I think that leads to what we were talking about earlier. I'm unsure about their offensive identity. Defensively, they're able to lock it. They're honestly defensively they've had a pretty good year so far.
Yeah, third in conference, 61.8 points per game.
Exactly right. So I think the defensive side of things is figured out. I think you just have to figure out and you're right. So actually, yeah, it is a reverse of the bench. You have the depth that you're kind of wanting to preach. Both teams were kind of talking about that previous this season, where like depth is going to be a big driving force for this team. But I want to see. Maybe this is just an incorrect analysis for me, but this is what I want to see, which is I want to see more possible defined roles for some of these players. I don't think that I don't think it'll be helpful for them to have the fluctuating minutes on and off. I know that Burns, looking for the people, he's doing a fair opportunity thing. If you're working hard, you get the chance, right?
Yeah.
But we just mentioned like so many different guards, and like besides Asia Proctor, I don't know how many of them we trust down the stretch of a game, or like how confident we are that they would be in the game down the stretch of a game. And then they all have good skill sets. I'm just curious about who is going to be the answer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When again, Proctor's not going or Nestor's not going, then, is it going to be, I like Sherry Spencer a lot, but she's a freshman, right?
Yeah.
So she makes mistakes sometimes in terms of some of the passes she tries to get out in transition, some of the shot selection. She's a scorer. She can figure it out, but I'm just unsure if that's the consistency that you want from that guard spot, right? And if we're talking about consistency, I like Jazzy Owens Barnett. It's good on the defensive end, but I don't know if she offered the offensive spark that you're kind of looking for. And then we just talked about Micaiah Chase, who I think offers the offensive spark plug, but she's not again as much of a oh goodness, facilitator.
Facilitator.
Long words
So
here.
many things to talk about.
Anyways, yeah. So women's basketball, I just want to see these players. I think be given more opportunities to kind of emerge as that three, and maybe that is what's kind of happening right now. Maybe we are kind of doing the final conference games kind of an audition to see what we're kind of going to lean into during the conference tournament.
Yeah.
My expectation, though, and I was telling you about this, is like this team I think is either going to win it all, or I think they could be really upset in the first round.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't be, and this is not because it's a bad team. I in the same breath I just said that they could win the entire tournament.
No, they have the talent.
There's such a range of inconsistency when it comes to, again, the offensive identity, and so therefore the results of these games. Down the stretch of games, I don't think this team has 100% confidence in what they're going to go to, right? And I think that leads to hesitancy, and I think that leads to some mistakes offensively. We mentioned the defensive mistakes we saw in Rice, and so I think we just need to have more certainty in what's going to happen down the stretch of games offensively, and then after that, I think you'll be able to figure out more about where this team can kind of end up.
Yeah. And as we kind of wrap up women's basketball here, just a different kind of topic. Megan Nestor, in case y'all didn't know, is going crazy on this team right now. Dropped another double-double, obviously conference leader in double-doubles. She might still be number one nationally in rebounds per game. I'm not sure, but up there with one of the best big forward/centers in women's basketball, college basketball at the moment. Dropped 14 points, 15 rebounds yesterday. She's on pace to break the single-season rebound record for this program. So where do you think this season? I guess you can't rank it all-time program history because it's a little ambiguous on who's played at this program, just on the stats we have. But just what do you think overall of how her season has been? Because obviously you come off of having Tamisha Lampkin, obviously program legend, who played that same position, obviously conference leader in rebound or program leader in rebounds and points. And Nestor, obviously senior, I believe. But just kind of this one season wonder at this level. Just how cool has it been to watch?
I mean, yeah, it's been awesome, man. And I think that, let's see here. Sometimes in the NBA, at least, right, there was a conversation about how valuable certain rebounders were, right? I think we're getting deep in the weeds here, okay?
Oh, but I'm into it.
In the mid 2010s, there was a lot of conversations about Andre Drummond when he was averaging like 15 rebounds, but he was awful defensively and he did not have much of an offensive game, and the rebounds were not valuable because, let's be honest, like he was essentially, we were kind of feeding him the rebounds. And I think, I think it'd be foolish to say like, oh yeah, all of her 30 rebounds in a 30 rebound game are like 100% like effort driven, like she's the one that's grabbing it. She's Dennis Rodmaning every single rebound. It'd be a crazy idea. There's going to be the gimmies. There's going to be the easy ones where I think players are boxing out for her to grab it, which is so cool. It's fine because I think that the value of a lot of those rebounds is legit. Like I think that she is hustling as much as she can. I mean, I saw her again, I think in that game against Tulsa prior to the freeze, hit the floor like so many times in just the first quarter. She's willing to go get dirty and go grab those rebounds and play down low. I think it's been pretty miraculous to watch. I think it's been feeding them possessions that they need, especially, again, if we're going to have this inconsistent offensive play, that you want as many chances as you can at bat, right? So I think it's been really helpful to have those, especially on the offensive rebounding side of things. And so I think it's been awesome to watch Megan Nestor kind of perform it the way she has. It's allowed, I think, this team to stay afloat, honestly, during times where, again, they have inconsistent offensive performances or, their defense doesn't perform as well as they should. But yes, it's been awesome to watch. As to how it measures, it's history regardless, right? But it's history. I mean, obviously program history. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, right? There'll be comparisons to. We should ask Coach Burton who he wants in a rebound situation. Does he want Tamisha Lampkin or Megan Nestor?
Or Megan Nestor.
I wonder what he'll say.
That'd be interesting.
But as far as like as Nestor and history goes, like she's making women's basketball history. Yeah. Right. That 30 and 30 game was insane. I think that she's going to have more opportunities. I mean, if they win this championship and make it to the national stage, I'd love to see Megan Nestor play in the NCAA tournament. Right. Those are kind of the stories that you kind of love about the NCAA tournament. Like this is a player from North Texas was leading the nation in rebounding. Of course, I'm going to go see. I don't see her play in LSU or play her at South Carolina.
Yeah, and when you're a fan of those Power 4 schools, you're like, "Oh, like, this is the person," like,
Yeah.
it's like, "Here's this team you should beat," but they have this one player who's,
There's one
like, literally,
player.
like, is, like, breaking records left and right. Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, for me, the me being in awe is honestly forget the program record stuff. It's super cool, and then shout out to SIDs because they'll have a ton of information on that. But like the NCAA stuff is crazy. Like the
Mhm.
impact she's having on women's basketball as a whole. I think that's something that people should be much more tapped into.
Yeah. That was a good segment there about basketball. Let's get into softball a little bit now. Oop, sorry
Oh,
about that, Mike.
oh,
Yeah. Softball kicked off their season this last weekend at a couple different tournaments. The Twisted Vines Bayou Bash.
I love the names for
Fun.
these
I know, these
tournaments.
tournaments are awesome. And then the 40th annual Louisiana Classics. They were down in Louisiana for a little bit. Kick off their season against number 2 Texas Tech, who, if you thought they couldn't get any better after adding Nigeri Kennedy last year, they did. They added a couple more people, ranked number 2. Obviously, took a loss there, but learning experience. Hey, still got that win from last year over them. Shout out Riley McNeamer.
Yeah.
Took on McNeese State. Or after that, it was a little rough for the softball team. Had took on McNeese State later that day, lost 5-2. Took on Jacksonville State the following day, lost 7-6. Lost 10-5 against Louisiana, and then their only win of the weekend came against ULM 5-4 on Sunday. New coach Cody White hopped on the Mean Green coaches show, kind of expressed his disappointment to kind of start off the season. Obviously, go check out NT Daily's preview of the softball team if you haven't. But obviously, this team is very young. I think it's 7 freshmen, which is a third of the roster. So just incredibly young. And from the limited experience I have of covering college softball, the difference between a freshman and even a sophomore is
Yeah.
staggering. Just the amount of I guess the jump up from the high school to collegiate level takes. And obviously having 7 freshmen is not gonna be fantastic. Obviously, you have your standout. Eva Daniels has been one Coach White has highlighted. But losing all those seniors that this team had kind of last year, and then Coach White bringing in a bunch of his own people that he wanted to get. Obviously, probably some growing pains. You have your leaders though. You brought back Riley McNeamer, who's a senior. You brought back Elizabeth Moffett, who shout out, hit 429 and 1,700 OPS and 3 home runs over the weekend. So
Baller.
if there's anything to look forward to for that, look out for her. She had a great year. Baller indeed. She had a great year last year. Madison Conley being another one of those leaders. She was injured, suffered an injury in the fall, but was able to play a little bit this last weekend, hit a home run, batting .333, and I think it was around 2 games. And then you brought back Annika Anderson, who was the best pitcher on this roster last year, figures to be the ace. Her teammates have all talked about how she's improved her game a ton. So some stuff to look forward to, but obviously you're going to take a loss there against Tech. But
Yeah.
I don't know how these teams like McNeese or Jacksonville State or Louisiana fare, but for a team as historied or in the last 6 years that North Texas softball has been, it's not exactly the opening weekend you want.
Yeah. So this is obviously a new coach, a new era under Cody White, and so I'm going to have to be using my. I'm not a huge college softball head in terms of like how long I've been covering.
We're missing
the
our,
sport.
our college softball.
I know. Hey,
people.
Haley Stum, where you at, man?
Katie Brackens, where you
Katie
at,
Brackens
man?
there. But in terms of the years that I was able to watch, I was there for the 2 years ago and a little bit last year for Rodney DeLong and his time here. Which, regardless of the situation that led to his resignation, he from the softball side, I think, has produced like very, very good results. And he also had several good players, program setting players, program defining players, I think, under his tenure here. So based on that, there's a philosophical, I think. I'm curious what you think, Ian, but I'm curious about what most softball people think in terms of like the philosophical debate on like how hard you schedule. Because I remember this vividly. So DeLong was talking about how like very intentionally we're going to bring in some really tough competition on the schedule, similar to Cody White here. There's a reason why I'm using him as an example right now. I mean, this season, right, we obviously talked about Tech, but they're obviously going to also play Mississippi State. They're going to play Oklahoma later this year. They're
The
going to
game sold out in like 2 hours when those tickets went on sale.
Yeah, and they were able to charge like what, 70 per?
75.
My God. I mean, first of all, that's beautiful for the sport.
That is great for this program, yes.
Yeah, and they're going to play FAU and USF. We're going to be the top of the American teams.
We'll get into FAU in a little bit. Yeah,
absolutely. They're going to play some very, very good teams throughout the year. They're going to play Rutgers, who's not power four, but a high major team.
Yep.
And so you're going to play a mix of a lot of good teams and possibly some mid majors that also might get some upsets on you because you're a young, inexperienced team. It just happens, right? Whether it be a Murray State or whether it be East Texas. So The philosophical debate. So I remember DeLong's schedule was something similar, where I remember like they got run ruled by A&M. They got beat up by Mizzou. They played Tech prior to when they got really dominant. But they played Tech at the time. They played Minnesota. They played all of these like high major teams, and they were kind of getting beat up a little bit. They played Oklahoma
Yeah.
State, and what ended up happening was by the end of the non-conference and we were heading into conference, it was like next time I would have probably played it a little less
A
aggressive.
little easier.
Yeah, right. 'Cause I'm curious about the impact that it has on morale and confidence, and
Mm.
just you know, obviously you're an athlete, but I imagine the mental side of things is just a little challenging when you're losing like 10-0. I mean,
Yeah.
Tech obviously not was 10-2, but I remember this A&M loss was 10-0. Now, simultaneous to that, I remember when they started conference play that very year. Okay, they played an East Carolina team who I remember the narrative when I looked at the schedule was like they've played nobody. They
Mhm.
were at the top of the conference at the time because we're just starting conference play. But they were like they had like 18 wins and they had basically played nobody at
Mhm.
all. Seriously, I mean, just a bunch of low major, mid major teams, and they were coming in and they had this crazy record that they were bolstering, and then North Texas beat the what out of them, and so and sent them home to East Carolina, pretty upset. And so I'm curious about what your take is on it. Obviously, it yields some good results. It builds those calluses, I imagine, in terms of if you play Tech, you can play anyone. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
If you can get 2 runs on Tech, I
No,
promise you, you
that's a
can.
good sign, honestly.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
could probably get 2 runs on a lot of different teams.
Yeah.
So that's a little comforting at some level. But I wonder by the end of conference play if Cody White's going to reflect on this and go, maybe I shouldn't have scheduled this aggressively. But I'm curious what he thinks and what you think as
Yeah,
well.
I think honestly, kind of segueing into the point about FAU, the question is how much is too much, and looking at the schedules compared from this year to last year, it's kind of the same. You played Mississippi State last year as
Yeah.
well. You had Oklahoma State. I think you took on at home. You played Georgia Tech. Um, Texas Tech, which obviously we won that game. So it's kind of the same amount of stuff. But obviously, what Cody White was saying, just on the basis of why you schedule that, is to harden you up, right? And especially if you have a young roster of freshmen and people who haven't played at the collegiate level, just what a wake up call that is, right?
I
It's
know, I
like, hey,
know.
you're new to this mid major softball program under this new leadership. Here is Nigel Kennedy in Texas Tech for your first ever collegiate softball game. I mean, I don't think there's kind of any better way to build some character for a roster like that. And then segueing into the FAU point, the, FAU is a great team. I don't know if y'all have kept up with college softball that way, but they're expected to kind of be ranked in that top 25 slot for most of the year. Have an All-American pitcher, Autumn Courtney, brought back a lot of their roster from last year. They were ranked last year as well, so they're just continuing that success. South Florida is another team that's expected to be great in this conference. So conference play is going to be a little rough this year. So I think this non-conference, and that's kind of the point Cody White was trying to make going back to him, um, it gears you up for that because all in all, if you lose half of your conference games, it's not going to affect you that, or non-conference games.
Non-conference,
It's
yeah.
not going to, very important distinction there. If you lose half of your non-conference games, it's not going to affect you that much, especially if the valuation of the teams you're playing is high. If you're playing at Texas Tech or Mississippi State and you lose those, it's not going to affect you that
Yeah.
much if you're North Texas.
They'll factor that into your NCAA ranking.
Yeah,
as well.
they'll factor that into that. But and then at the same time, it gears you up for playing these teams like FAU, who obviously are no Texas Tech, but they
Mhm.
are a significant
Yeah.
challenge for conference play. So if you have that experience against these fantastic teams like Tech and Mississippi State, then it's going to gear you up and prepare you for those teams like FAU and stuff. So I think it's really about getting into conference play, and this team will pick it up. They'll get wins in conference or non-conference play. I need to start distincting that very clearly. They have games against like Murray State. East Texas A&M is their home opener, so obviously some lower class colleges that they should be able to pull out wins for. And it's just about this roster gelling, right? They kind of had a roughish fall just in terms of blending and figuring out the type of team they wanted to be because Coach Cody White really changed the just the environment and the strategy that they're trying to build for this team. Obviously brought in a lot of his own people. So it was an adjustment for both the girls that were returning here and the newcomers. So I think it's just also about the maturation process for the team. As the season goes on, they're obviously going to click and they'll start to pull out these games. And I think this tough non-conference that looks like on paper is going to pay off when they get into conference play.
Hey, I love it, man. I again, there's no perfect formula in my brain. I've seen different people take different approaches to it. Coach Burton was talking about when they started non-conference this season. They started to have they had their first 4 games all at home against lower
Hmm.
competition,
Yep.
and then they ramped it up later on. And that had mixed results. Obviously, we were just talking about women's basketball. Who's had a so-so season so far. I'm really curious to see how this scheduling is going to work. But what I'm also more really curious about is how this play style is conveying into different results. I have not watched any of these games. That's the first thing I'm going to say. I'm a box score watcher for softball right now. I'll be having to tune in.
In terms of the kind of the strategy change, it was more of a if I'm recalling Haley Stumm's article correctly, it's going to be more of a kind of a Jason Burton type
Yeah.
thing. Like we're in your face, we're attacking, we're stealing bags, we're hitting aggressively. Whereas with Coach DeLong
Yes.
when he was here, it was very much more tactical, kind of thinking through situations. So it's very much kind of a mindset switch, and that was something Coach White also harped on. It's kind of preseason is like, yeah, I'm the energy builder around here. I want people to feed off of my energy. We need to be a high energy level team. So that's just kind of the adjustment they're
Yeah.
trying to make here.
No. And I love that. I was looking through these first results, and that was something that stood out to me. It was like, yeah, a 7-6 loss against Jacksonville State. I mean, it just feels very unlike a lot of the DeLong stuff, which I
Yeah.
think was very intentionally like pitching is such a huge focus. I just need you to keep us in the game, and we just need a couple of bats. We just need a couple of hits that will just be enough to win this game, like 3-2,
Yeah.
4-2. And so to see it like a 7-6 game, I was like, whoa. And like the 10-5 game right after that, obviously, that's not great on our end in terms of allowing that many runs.
Yeah.
But to see us enter the softball equivalent of shootouts, I'm really curious. I'm really curious to see how many more games are going to play out like that.
Yeah, yeah, and then I guess kind of last note is I guess kind of back on the gelling thing. There was a lot of lineup changes through those 4 games, so I think just a lot of experimentation too. You have your people who are going to be in the lineup. Moffitt's obviously going to be a full time
yeah.
starter. Conley is going to be a full time starter. They're both fantastic bats. Annika Anderson is going to start batting a little bit this year. She was just strictly a pitcher last year. She's going to start batting. You have Brady Harmon, who is a two-way player. She's kind of started to lead off and at second. Aria Mitchell is kind of learning to play first base. So it's going back to that maturation process and jailing process. I think White's kind of trying to find his lineup that he wants to stick. Also, probably the reason, like, hey, let me just throw you in against Texas Tech, and we'll see who kind of comes out the best and has the most success. And then I think once you get into conference play, he's going to have his roster that he wants, and then that's going to be the one that's most successful.
I get it. Yeah. How do you evaluate this pitching unit so far?
This pitching unit, they kind of got beat up. I think it was obviously
yeah.
you brought in a lot more depth. Obviously, last year it was really just the Skylar Savage and Annika Anderson show.
Yeah.
You obviously had Kaylee Smith and Gracie Maloney were kind of on the bench, but they only got games here and there. They weren't really consistent. Let me pull up the pitching stats real quick. You obviously brought in Brittany Lewinsky, who kind of figures to be the 2 or the 1. Annika Anderson figures to be your 1. She was great last year. You bring back Kaylee Smith, and then Brady Harmon can play pitcher. All of them kind of got beat up a little bit. Annika Anderson is going to be great. I'm just going to say that right now.
Yeah.
Don't look at these stats from right now. She was great last year.
She was.
Improved her game a lot. She's a junior now this year. She's gonna obviously she'll bat a little bit, but she's gonna be the main ace for this team. The Brittany Lewinsky had great success at the JUCO level. She had like a 2 or a sub-2 ERA, won multiple like pitchers of the years type thing. So obviously that's about the adjustment to the mid-major level. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. Mid-majors, the adjustment to the mid-majors or the high majors is a big one. So just about for both of them, I think obviously look out for both of them. Annika Anderson, Brittany Lewinsky are going to be your 2 main pitchers. Just look out for them to have some improvement as it goes on.
I remember my freshman year, I got to watch Annika play for Tulsa at the time.
Yeah.
And I saw her play at North Texas, and I was like, wow,
Stole her.
that guy really is a great player. That was my first initial takeaway.
She's just very composed on the mound. Love
it.
Where obviously softball, like you get amped up a lot, especially if there's an out. Same thing with baseball. But she never looks nervous on the mound. And that was kind of a knock on Skylar Savage, especially last year. Sometimes I guess Mackenzie Childers too.
Oh, yeah.
If they made a bad pitch, then sometimes they just scuff a bunch of pitches in the dirt, get the. You really don't see that from Anderson much. If she gets into a jam, she'll get out of it. She doesn't really put herself in those jams. She's extremely composed. Obviously has amped up her pitch repertoire going into this season. So going to be some exciting stuff from her.
And honestly, yeah, I think what you're talking about and her being projected to be that ace, I imagine part of the pitch that Cody White had to her and Moffitt for returning.
Mm-hmm.
Right, they're obviously statistically speaking, both of them are going to ball out this year. So I mean, the amount of opportunity they're going to have to really prove themselves this season. I know Moffitt is she a junior?
She's a junior.
Yeah, so both of them will have one more year in case they want to make that jump. Not knock on wood, obviously. But hoping that they stay. But
Please.
um,
They came back once, so you might as well just stay, right?
but they're going to have a ton of opportunity to prove themselves in case they want opportunities at a possibly higher major level.
Yeah. We're running out of time here a little bit, so let's get into track and field just slightly. Normally,
do
we
it.
don't talk about sports we can't, get much information on, but the track and field has just been going absolutely nuts. They're breaking records left and right. Need to slow down here. I'm so excited. At their last invite at the Oklahoma Classic, they had
Wow.
10 champions. Yeah, are you just looking at this now,
Yeah,
Justin?
man, 10 champions.
No, I mean just everyone. Men's field, men's track, women's field. Just so many people are breaking records. Leah McNeil. I mean, who do you choose to kind of be the indoor MVP right now? But I think it's got to be a Leah McNeil. She has earned herself 2 American Women's Field Athlete of the Week awards. Just one, this most recent one. Won one a couple of weeks ago. Multiple gold medals in high jump and long jump. Was interestingly enough with Coach Marshall at I think it was Iowa Western Community College, wherever Coach Marshall was before. She was at Minnesota for a couple of years and came down here. I think she's a graduate or a 5th year. She's been absolutely killing it. She had great success at the junior college level. Was great at Minnesota. I think she was a Big Ten, all Big Ten selection. So I mean, great find for us. You usually don't see all Power 4 selections coming down to a mid major, but that what a great find. Couple other guys, Phil Cotton, who you did a feature on a little bit. Phil Cotton, the multi-event Phil Cotton broke the, I think it was long jump,
I think so
some
too.
kind of jump. Yeah, broke a 50-year-old long jump record. Yep. And then Hendrik Hundel, a hurdler, broke a 60-meter at this last event. So, and then there's so much more. I mean, let me just try to list off what I have off the top of my head. 4x400 women's medley relay broke the indoor record. Aaliyah McNeil obviously broke the high jump and long jump program records. Ariana Williams she broke a sprinting record, whether it's 60 meters or not. Trezeguet Taylor, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that.
Of the dome. Okay.
I spend a lot of time on these news articles.
Take it away, pal.
60-meter sprints. Chase Lair broke his 800-meter record. London Colbreth broke the 3,000-meter record or her own record, something like that. One of the throwers, it's he's a really long name, so I'm not going to try to remember it, but he broke the I think shot put record, just so many things, and I don't even think that scratches the surface. And then just between the champions and the records broken. Justin, let me ask you now, with all this information in mind now,
I'm ready.
Obviously, this has been a great year for UNT sports, especially in the fall. You had football had a fantastic season. Volleyball had a great first season under Dave Fleming. The way track and field is going right now, do you think they're kind of third on this totem pole of seasons, athletic seasons at UNT right now? Track and field?
You know, the way that basketball's heading out right now.
That's what
man,
I'm saying.
I mean, honestly, why not? Yeah.
Why not?
Honestly, and then also, to be fair, I think men's and women's golf might also, or men's golf is also picking up.
Yeah, Alex Wang specifically has been killing it.
Shout out, man. But no, I mean, I want to say, like, there's no one better to root for than this North Texas track and field team. Like I can attest, I've done a ton of interviews with Coach Stevens back when we were doing cross country. I've done a bunch of stories, obviously with field and track athletes. We've had a bunch of reporters go out there and do them. And these track and field athletes are so gracious with their time. They're so willing to do access. And, obviously, they have a lower visibility sport. And I'm so grateful that they acknowledge that in stride and really make it like as easy and convenient for us as possible to get their stories out there and tell those stories. I think there's a ton of, track and field is just so awesome because there's so many different people from so many different backgrounds. But the one unique factor that I want to really praise for Coach Marshall's program is that all of them have been so gracious and so nice to us. And so I'm so glad that this program is reaching some heights that I think it's been generating some momentum toward for a little long time. Obviously, Doug Marshall took over in 2022, June 27th. And so
the exact date is crazy. June 27th,
I haven't pulled
2022.
up. That's not off memory. I'm not like you.
I was like, wow.
But he's been here essentially. He got here. I think Morris was kind of also hired in the summer of 22.
Yeah, the early 2020s was a big transitionary period just for the athletics department
and
in
so,
general.
Yes, he had to deal with the American Conference transition, and so I think that it's a great trajectory for where this program is at the moment. I think that him arriving at the same time of Morris kind of creates a natural analogy there, where obviously Morris, took 3 years, and this is the year that everything was clicking and working together. And so hopefully for Marshall, this is the year that his program across the board is able to put all the pieces together. In previous years, they've always had like like the throwers were
Yeah,
awesome.
Jake
right?
Parchman is a school record holder. You had Victor Neva, who was a great long
Yeah,
distance
for
runner.
long distance. I think the women's sprints team has been killer since I've gotten here, and they've been able to compete at the highest levels possible. And so I'm super excited to see if this is the year that across the board, all of those different pieces kind of just all activate at the same time, and that you could have a similar Morris-esque season where this is your breakout season.
Yeah.
And if it's not this season, then I hope it's the next one, because again, these track and field athletes are just so wonderful to interview.
Yeah.
Love doing track and field.
Yeah, and it
coverage.
seems like it. And if there's anything to transfer from what we just said, give Daniel Robinson a couple seasons. All right, give him a couple of seasons, and this will be the result you get. Now, those are all our segments for right now. Just to kind of wrap up, Swim and Dive is heading into their American Conference Championships. Obviously, that diving team specifically set championship record in team diving. Cameron Wong won the 1 meter event and 3 meter event. So great dive team. They got brought back all those pieces again going into it next week. We'll have a video coming out about that. We'll have a story coming out about that. Stay tuned. Yes, be sure to check those out. And then check out the North Texas Daily's recent issue coming out in sports. We got a feature on Asia Proctor, who you were just talking about. Obviously, that all-around offensive player for the team. And then some coverage of women's tennis, talking about very low limelight sports. Women's tennis is also under that same thing, under head coach Amanda Stone, has kind of been building up their success for a little bit. They had their first postseason appearance since 2014, this last spring. Kind of been getting into the role this spring, so we're looking forward to kind of what they are going to do over there.
This is not a glaze fest, dude, but I want to tell you, like, shout out Jared Mosley, man. These are some really great hires.
That's the glaze approved for Jared Mosley.
I mean,
he's a fantastic AD. Even if I
approved
wasn't a
for
UNT
Jared
fan, like, I
Mosley.
mean, Baylor was looking at him. It was kind of rumored on X. I mean, he just does a fantastic job hiring coaches.
I mean, you really think about it, like, I don't think that Marshall or Stone or Morris or any of these coaches were really at the top. Burton, atop of many people's radars, but the fact that he went out there and
I mean,
chose
you
these
found
people.
Dave Fleming from
Oh my
Colorado
gosh,
Mesa,
yeah.
and he didn't need any time. Came in here and had a 20-win season. So
And it's only looking up from there. Like, shout out to a lot of. Again, maybe there is a central message here being like, yeah, just give Coach Robinson.
give it some time.
Just give it some time, man, because it does.
I kind of
take
convinced
time.
myself after you went on that rant. I was like, oh, it's all clicking now. He just needs a couple seasons. Like, it's
He's
the thing
bringing
here.
in the recruits.
Yeah.
There's injuries this season. It's like, just give him a shot. Give him a shot.
Yeah. It's been a fun episode, Justin. Thank you for hopping on today.
It's always fun with you, Ian.
I know
Absolutely,
it's
bro.
been a great episode. Thank you guys for watching. We will see you guys in this next episode. Life is a little busy, so we'll try to get them out. But thank you guys for watching once again, and have a good day. Peace out.